Welcome to Your Intended Message, the perfect place for leaders and promising professionals who want to convey the intended message for greater success. Every week, we interview experts who can help you communicate more effectively, whether that's one-to-one, one-to-few, or one-to-many. And perhaps the most important conversation, one-to-self. I'm your host, George Torok. My guest today is Tsufit. So let me get that right again. Tsufit, right? Let me try again.
Interesting. No, actually, that was good. Oh, okay. Okay.
And maybe you does that open the opportunity for you to correct me later?
Yeah. I was going to say I'll just let you know that is a very common question, how you pronounce my name. So I was doing a radio show, a terrestrial radio show, what they call quote unquote real radio show a few years ago, and like every time, the host always asked me before we go on the air, how do you pronounce your name? So I told her Tusfit. And she goes, oh, okay, feet. Oh, got it. She writes it down and note. And then we start the broadcast, which actually I think was live, as most radio is. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our show. And today we have award-winning author Tsufit. So, she remembered the feet part, but she didn't quite get the, So that's, and so now when a host asks me how you pronounce your name, I say, ask me on the air, I'll tell you a story.
Cool, okay, good. Here's 3 facts that I believe you should know about our guest today. She's been through 3 distinct careers. Let's look at each one. First of all, she was a lawyer, a litigation lawyer for 10 years. In her second career, she was a singer, actress, and comedian. And in her third career, where I believe she's now, there may be a fourth one. In her third career, she is a speaker, keynote speaker, consultant, and best-selling author who helps entrepreneurs and individuals get noticed, get better noticed, and stand out from the crowd. Tsufit, welcome to Your Intended Message.
Thank you very much, George. Glad to be here. And I'll just say, I consider myself now in this career more or less a coach. I mean, I do all those other things that you mentioned. And I never really thought of it like that as 3 careers. I kind of just thought lawyer, left law for limelight, performer, coach. Yeah, but I guess it's true.
3 certainly distinct changes. I mean, was you after leaving law, you became an actress, a comedian. So I wonder if that was therapy for the 10 years as a lawyer.
It's a good way to put it. During the time that I had the lawyer, I actually had a 4th career, I guess you could say, which was really my first career, which was the career of being mommy. I'm still very happy to hold that position, even though I'm not taking on any new clients in that department. But as a mommy lawyer, you don't really get to express yourself exactly the way you want to, although you should. And here's the irony. The gods are probably rolling down the aisles with laughter, because now I coach, amongst other groups, lawyers. I have a lot of lawyers over the years who have become clients of mine, because they're in a profession just like accountants and financial advisors and a lot of the other categories of people I coaches, where people are all saying the same stuff. They're saying the same things, they're doing the same, they look the same, they wear suits. I mean, they're not very distinct. They're not very distinguishable. I was speaking once, I think it was a Chamber of Commerce event, and did a little talk, and I asked all the money people in the room to stand up and come to the front. So that included accountants and financial advisors and whatever, bankers. And so they all came to the front of the room, like 20 men, mostly men, but a few women in suits. And I said to them and to the audience, I said, if I needed, a money person, like which one of you guys would I choose? And, from looking at you, I don't know who to choose. And then even when they introduced themselves, they were all saying the same stuff. So I didn't know who to choose from that. So that kind of became, it was never my therapy, but it sort of became that I could embrace who I really was. And, so becoming that comedian was just an extension of, what I was doing naturally when I wasn't at work.
Now, when was it that you first realized that you need to stand out from the crowd?
Well, I never really realized that I needed to stand out of the crowd because I have been blessed. I was at a high school reunion, and I went up to this woman who was about 5 years older than me, and I went to her and I said, "You don't know me, but I'm a friend of your brother's, or not a friend, but I went to school with your brother. The truth is, I kind of had a crush on him, but I didn't tell her that. Anyway, she said, 'Oh, I know who you are.' She said, 'When we moved into the neighborhood, you were 8, and you walked up to me and you said, "Hi, I'm Tsufit. Welcome to the neighborhood." Now, I had no recollection of the story, and I don't even know if it's true or not. But the fact that she remembered it and told it like that means, I have not really had a lot of difficulty standing out. But in business, if I called myself just a business coach, nobody would hire me. If I called myself a business mentor, or if I called myself a speaking coach, no one would hire me. If I called myself a publicity coach, no one would hire me. I do all those things, but they're not distinct enough. So I guess I did realize it, but when I really realized it was when I saw how other people present themselves. "Hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm a real estate agent for all your real estate needs. If you want to buy or sell a house because mortgage rates are low," blah, blah, like automaton. And that's when it occurred to me that I could take something that I, do more or less naturally and teach other people how to do it. And yes, it can be taught. A lot of people think, oh, it's just you. Sometimes people don't hire me at first because it happened to me once. A person didn't hire me for 2 years. She was kind of looking at me, thought, well, that's just her, right? And then she came to me one day and she said, "The penny dropped. You're not going to teach me how to be like you. You're going to teach me how to be a better version of me." And that was exactly it.
If you could coach that lawyer that you were in your first career on how to be better noticed, how to stand out as a lawyer from the crowd, what 1, 2, or 3 pieces of advice would you give to your first career?
Well, when I was a lawyer, I was never on my own, and I wasn't a partner. I was an employee at that time because I kept shooting out babies, and you kind of get stuck on that mommy track. But the lawyers that I now coach, what I advise them to do is to choose a narrow niche, choose a group of people that you serve, well, you really have 2 choices. You either choose a narrow topic of expertise, which some lawyers do and some don't, a specialty, and you choose a narrow audience. You can do one or the other. If you do both, it's ideal. So I have a client who's a lawyer right now. And when he came to me, he was doing wills, some estates, some real estate deals, some, just disputes, whatever it was. Sat him down and I said, okay, let's look at your whole practice and let's figure out really where is the money coming from is one question. Like I made him kind of report to me over the last few years, which of these areas is money coming from, and also which do you enjoy doing and which is less aggravation and which is less potential liability, all these things. And we realized that it's litigation. So I said immediately, okay, you don't do wills anymore. You don't do real estate deals anymore. You don't do it. He said to me, "Tsufit, you don't understand. That's my bread and butter." Da, da, da. I said, "Dude, you don't understand. Anyway." So a few years later, he stopped fighting me and he started going with it. And now he exclusively speaks and writes. He's written a book recently, which is the other thing I recommend that people do to stand out. You've written several books. He is known as an estate lawyer who, and now a mediator, who deals with sibling estate fights. So not just a general estate lawyer, because there's, I've been to parties with estate lawyers. There's 200 people in the room. It's not a huge section of the bar, but still 200 people you're competing with locally, or more. But none of them, not one of them, deals with sibling estate fights exclusively, even though most fights about estates are with siblings, because who else are you fighting? Mom or dad passes away, or both, and you're fighting about the cottage and the condo and whatever it is. So that's usually what it is. But it was interesting, George, because I was at a networking event, I think a exhibitor event, and I was walking around and I saw this magazine, a publisher had published it, and it was open to a page. And the title of the article was something about the sibling estate fight. And I said, uh-oh, we have a problem here, because that's my client's topic. How come you've got an article on that, right? I look at who wrote the article. It was my client. I didn't realize, because but it was a topic that he and I had come up with based on our discussions. And look how identifiable it was, that I see the topic and I think, wait, that's my guy's topic. And it was by him. And now he gets asked to speak on that topic. He has written a book on that topic. He is a mediator. He mediates on that topic and writes articles and whatever. So ways to stand out, answer to your question, choose a niche, choose a niche audience that you serve, choose a topic that you serve, one or the other, or both, ideally, and then get out and speak on it, write articles about it, write a book on it if you can, and make sure that people know that that's what you do, and don't dilute it by saying, oh, and I also do, and I also do, and I also do. I mean, you can also do, if people come to you and they say, I want to pay you money to do this other thing, it's up to you. You can accept it, you can do it, but just don't advertise it, don't promote it. If you go to a networking meeting, nobody's going in person anymore, but we used to get 30 seconds at the mic. Now we get it at the virtual mic. If you have 30 seconds to introduce what you do, don't say, I'm a rocket scientist and I do gift baskets on the side.
Mm-hmm. So stop giving out menus.
Yes, exactly. And it's true. Actually, I'm glad you said that, George, because a lot of speakers have a menu of topics on their website. I speak about stress reduction. I speak about closing sales. I speak about how to discipline your children. And I'm thinking, really, like, you're letting me 15 topics. I'd rather be an expert who speaks about my area of expertise than, a speaker who will speak about anything. And for a speaker who wants to get business, or a professional who wants to get business, or somebody in corporate who wants to get known for something, you got to pick.
So it sounds like the first lesson in standing out from the crowd is not sounding like the crowd, and picking your niche, the problem you fix. I also suppose, now when I think about the niche, the lawyer niche, sibling estate fights, there's got to be a fairly good market there, because people, every time someone dies, there's a fight. And so it's a rich market. And yet I've never heard of any lawyer who I haven't heard of a lawyer who says they only do that. I've heard of lawyers who say they do real estate wills and they'll go traffic court and all this other things. So, but I'm thinking, when I think about sibling fights, estate fights, the other point that I noticed there is it addresses a particular mindset in your audience. So it's not just what's happening, but it's what those people might be feeling. So you've got angry people. Really, that person helps angry people get the money problems solved.
Well, you make a good point. There's a guy, Robert Collier. He was an ad guy back in the day, and he has this great phrase: enter the conversation going on in the prospect's mind. And that's exactly what you just referred to there. What is the prospect thinking? So in the example of my client, the prospect is thinking, my bully of an older brother got everything growing up. There's no way he's getting mom's condo. That's the conversation going on in this guy's mind. And that's really what you have to do. Realtors, what you just said about how they introduce themselves and they're completely indistinguishable. Well, what about And it's not enough to say, I specialize in the condo market or whatever. Maybe, 30 years ago when I was taking, or whenever it was, when I was taking condo law, that would have been something, but now, no. But what you could say is that you specialize in selling condos to women who finally ditched that guy, and it's their first condo after, or it's I just turned 50, look at me birthday condo, like second house to get away from the kids, or whatever it is. And I've never seen a realtor do that. I just gave out 2 examples. So if you have any realtors listening, take one of those 2 and run with it. Because, for another example, someone is a weight loss coach, okay? You can't walk 5 seconds without tripping over 17 weight loss coaches, right? But if a weight loss coach stood up and said something like, I'll help you get into your skinny jeans by Friday. Now that doesn't sound very credible, but it certainly enters the conversation going on in the prospect's mind. Or maybe a little more realistically, right? Are you embarrassed to go to your high school reunion? Gained a few pounds? I'll get in a couple of months, I'll have everybody staring at you at your high school reunion or whatever. So again, you're anchoring it to an event, you're anchoring it to an emotion going on in the prospect's mind. Embarrassment, shame, anger. The more visceral the emotion, the more resonant the message.
Mm. When you're coaching your clients, and when you say it makes perfect sense, I see it. But when you're talking, you're coaching your clients, and you're trying to convince them to take this approach. I'm guessing they push back and they say,
they resist like crazy. Of course
yes, but I'm different.
Yes,
you don't understand my.
Yes, but I'm different. Dan Kennedy made a whole career. He made even big posters for his wall saying, but my business is different, or whatever. Everybody says that, right? Or Tsufit, you don't understand my business. How many millions of times have I heard that, right? It won't work on my business. It won't work on my clients. It won't, when I tell people to raise their fees, oh, Tsufit, the going rate you don't know my business. You don't know there's no such thing as a going, there's a going rate, which everybody else is charging. And there's what's possible, because there's true price elasticity. You could charge 10 times that, right? If it were a question of the going rate, how much does a Hyundai or a little car cost? How much does a Rolls Royce cost? How much does a Ferrari cost? If there were a going rate for cars, but people resist. You're right. And they resist about this messaging because they are afraid of offending. They are afraid of losing out on some potential clients. And my answer to them is you have to polarize your audience. If you don't polarize, look at the US. They elected a president who proved like no other that polarizing your audience works. And he didn't need 50% of the votes. He didn't need 50% of the population. He just needed a good chunk of people who resonated with his message in a big, strong way. If you look at Apple versus PC, or Apple versus Microsoft, or whatever, a lot fewer people buy Apple. And in fact, when I first bought a computer, I don't know, 20 years ago, whenever it was, I asked people, I said, what should I buy, Apple or PC? And most people at that time said, well, you got to buy a PC. And that's when we had the desktop, because most programs won't run on Apple and you're going to have headaches and the translation. Yeah, buy a PC, right? That's what most people said. The few people I asked who said you got to buy an Apple didn't just say, well, you should buy an Apple. They were so passionate about it. They wanted to grab me by the hand and drag me to the store and show me which Apple to buy. So you can either have, real advocates, real ambassadors for the brand, or you can have, lukewarm people who kind of say. And so if you want to have those brand ambassadors, if you want to have those people who really resonate, you need a powerful, strong message, which, yes, will polarize your audience, will alienate some people, but the people that you don't alienate, the people who do resonate with your message, will resonate in a much bigger way and will be great brand ambassadors and refer and, just make better clients.
So I'm hearing 2 things there. I'm hearing one, you've got to decide what you won't do, what market you won't chase. And two, at the same time, you have to get used to annoying some people.
You know, if you want to be liked by everybody, I think I said it in this conveniently located book, Step into the Spotlight. What was that old Dean Martin song? Everybody loves somebody sometime. Everybody. So you have to alienate some people, right? If you're loved by everybody all the time, it means that people are kind of okay with you. You're an as Dan Kennedy calls it, an interchangeable commodity, right? You're generic. If you come out of that and you stand out, some people will love you, some people not so much. And, you know, speaking of messaging, one of the best ways to get your intended message out there is with your business name. So there's this great story about a company that sold, it was like an HVAC company. They sold, you know, air conditioning, whatever, fans, big fans for arenas, right? And colloquially, you know, off the record, some of them, their clients would say, wow, I forget their name. It was some boring, you know, it doesn't matter what the name is because it's forgettable. And that I just proved that it's forgettable because I forget it, even though I talk about them. But I do remember what they changed their name to. And here's how it happened. Their clients would occasionally joke around with them and say, God, you guys sell some big ass fans. So they had this marketing consultant who said to them, you know, if people are calling it that, why don't you just change your name to Big Ass Fan? Well, not only did they get pushback from the local community where they put up signs and billboards with that name, they got pushback from their own employees who did not want to answer the phone at a respectable company by saying, hello, welcome to Big Ass Fan. I mean, they were embarrassed, right? So, hello, welcome to Big Ass Fan, right? They mumbled over it, right? Well, it turned out such a controversy, like the local people didn't want to see the billboard. BBC in the UK, in London, ended up talking about them, right? I heard of them. You know, it became a marketing case study. It worked. And they were bold enough, this company, to post not only their accolades on their website, but also the people, the detractors, people who said, I will never do business with your company because of your unprofessional name. They didn't shrink from that. They didn't hide from that. They posted those comments on their website, right? Because it just shows that polarizing your, and by the way, their profits went up, right? As a result of that change. Because look, before you have a generic company that nobody's heard of, and now you have something that everybody's talking about. So I would say don't shy away from it.
Now, I think I heard another gem there, and that is that one, instead of avoiding controversy, maybe one should look and encourage a controversy that you can live with.
Well, that's actually your proviso at the end is important, that you can live with, because listen, you can get noticed, you can get attention. Do you remember back in the day, I think it was at the Oscars, there was a streaker, you know, who ran across the stage to protest treatment of a certain population. Somebody ran naked across the stage. You can go out in the street naked and you will get attention. You can go to a networking meeting and dance with, you know, sequins and jump on your chair and sing songs, and you can put on, you can get noticed. Everybody can get noticed, right? Some people do it through violence, God forbid. Other people, you know, a lot of times when you read about violent acts, it was somebody who didn't get noticed and wanted to get noticed, unfortunately, right? And the media notices that kind of thing. So I'm not saying you do it at all costs. I'm not saying you do it in bad taste. I'm not saying, but then again, taste is relevant, right? And if, but some people will always find everything in bad taste, right? We see this on social media. Some people, no matter what you say, somebody's going to get offended by it. So you might as well think, okay, who are the people I'm trying to reach? Who are the people I'm trying to address? What will resonate with them? And then, yeah, I wouldn't shy away from it. I don't know if I would actively seek out conflict, but a little controversy never hurts. And I'll give you an example. And again, it works perfectly with your intended message, because Robert Kiyosaki, he's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. He wrote, you know, about a dozen books plus commission, has other people who wrote books with him, and he has this whole coaching program. His message when he started out and he went on radio with this message was a very controversial message, because we were brought up in Canada and the US and most countries to think your house is the biggest asset you will ever own, right? That's where you put your wealth. It's your biggest asset. He went on the radio and said, your house is not an asset. Well, everybody was very offended by this, because he spent, 20, 30, 40 years saving for this, and they're so proud, I have my big asset, right? He goes on the radio and said, your house is not an asset. It's the opposite of an asset. Your house is something that you're putting money into. An asset is something you can take money out of. An asset is a vending machine. A rental property is an asset. So you can buy a condo or a house, but and rent it, that's an asset, right? It spits out money. Your house is not an asset. So he angered so many people, probably angered all the realtor people. He definitely angered the radio people who were interviewing him or were paying mortgage payments on their big houses. He said, your toys, your boat is not an asset. You put money into that, right? So that's an example where the message can bring you controversy. It can also bring you acclaim and expert, the expert status. Because one thing that I always like to say is an expert is not someone who knows what she knows. An expert is someone who is known for knowing what she knows. So if you're the best accountant or the best lawyer or the best whatever, who cares? It's like that old, if a tree falls in the forest and no one can hear it, doesn't make a sound. If you're the best at what you do, if you're the best speaking coach, George, but nobody's ever heard of you, yeah, go teach the mice in your basement how to speak, because nobody else will know that you exist. So a little bit of controversy can get you there. On the other hand, like we just said, in the US, we've seen what a lot of controversy can do. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but it certainly is a fast way of getting known.
How has controversy helped you promote your career?
It's funny. In a lot of things that I teach and preach, I often say, do as I say, not as I do, because I have to admit to you a few things. My topic and my audience are not as narrow as I recommend my clients' topics and audiences to be. Again, I write a book, Step into the Spotlight, A Guide to Getting Noticed. I could have written Step into the Spotlight for accountants. I could have, and I still could. I could write another 10 books. Michael Gerber did that. He took his E-Myth and he wrote, 59 versions of it. And Mark Victor Hansen, Jack Canfield took Chicken Soup for the Soul for Christian proctologists or whatever it is that they do, right? So in my career, I haven't really done that so much. I mean, I'm not just a business coach, right? I'm a marketing coach. I'm not just a marketing coach. I'm a coach who will teach you how to stand out, get seen, get heard, get noticed, get known. So I narrowed a little bit, but I didn't narrow anywhere near as I should, as I would like to see my clients do. The other thing I did was my audience: authors, speakers, coaches, experts, influencers, media. They're it's not everybody, but it's certainly, and so I guess I could put it under experts, right? Okay. But it's not as narrow as if, there was a guy in my LinkedIn group. I lead a group of 13,000 on LinkedIn, as you know. And we had a guy in there who coached angry physicians, physicians with anger management. Okay. So anger management is the topic, physicians is the niche. So he married both those things really well. I haven't done that. But I guess to answer your question, I guess the way that I stand out is with irreverent humor, right? Number one, I tell it like it is, which a lot of people are very afraid to do. I was just on a call just before ours today in a group of coaches, and I was critiquing their 30 seconds and what they were saying. And the first thing I had to say to the first person is, my advice doesn't come, in a pretty pink ribbon. You have to sign a waiver, disclaimer, you're not going to get a nervous breakdown based on me giving you the straight goods, because I have had people upset before. I've been at live events. There was one in California where I critiqued a bunch of people who were really grateful, and one was devastated. Like she didn't, she thought she was great and whatever. So I guess I stand out in that regard, that I'm known for, a frank kind of tell it like it is assessment. But if I really wanted to be, to follow my own advice better, I would be like one of my clients. She was a therapist when she came to me, and she treated a bunch of different people. And when I found out she volunteered for an organization based on something that had happened in her life. She was married 20, 30 years, had grown adult children with her husband. And one day her husband comes to her and goes, by the way, honey, I'm gay. Big shock to her. So I said, well, why don't we use that? Why don't we use that? Why don't you, instead of being a therapist for everybody, why don't you be the therapist or the coach or whatever it is you want to call it for the straight spouses of gay, in a marriage with a gay man, right? That's a narrow niche. Now she could say to me, Tsufit, like, it's not like, you know, I can go to BNI in front of 20 people and say I do this and I'm going to have a lineup, right? Then again, the realtor doesn't have a lineup either. But what I said to her is, yes, that may be true, but we live in a global world and there are enough cases of this that you could have a very lucrative business. But here's the punchline of this story, George. So I told her this. She was in a small group, my Step Into Spotlight program. I recorded it live with just 12 people, and then I sold it afterwards as an audio program. In the live program, there was another woman on the program who, once we dug into this woman's niche, she started speaking, this other woman, and said, I think I'm going to have to talk to you because my husband, and I basically shut her up because I didn't want to invade her husband's privacy on a call that I was going to sell for the next 10 years. So I shut her up. I edited that part out. But 12 people, we find a niche for this woman, and one of the 12 people thinks that she's a prospect for this woman. So I'm telling you, if our listeners are afraid to do this, don't be afraid to do this. It's just going to help you stand out more. And your potential. Now, listen, if you repair the fastening device on trapezes in circuses, that may be a little bit narrow, right? Especially now we don't so much go to the circus. That's a little bit narrow, but most things are not that narrow. They're not as narrow as you think. And the more that you figure out what you sell, whom you sell it to, and how to message that, you'll be away.
Few points before we wrap up. One, for those that are interested in your book, and you mentioned it a couple times, but let's just remind them, it's called Step Into the Spotlight. The best place to find that is where?
Well, normally I would send you to www.spotlightbook.com, or you can order it from Amazon. The only thing is that now during this period, I'm supplying Amazon, and I would prefer if you ordered on Kindle so that I don't have to deal with the logistics of it. But you can go to spotlightbook.com, find the book, and then order it on Kindle, or order a used copy on Amazon or on eBay. The last call I was on, he had like 6 copies in his hand that he was giving away to the listeners, which was really nice. And I think he had ordered them from, eBay and whatever. So that's what you can do. You can also come join the 13,000 member LinkedIn group, which you can do at www.spotlightgroup.biz, B-I-Z. And if you want some free tips about how to stand out in 30 seconds, you can get those at www.spotlightsecrets.com. Spotlight Secrets with an S at the end.com. And I just want to give a bit of advice for the entrepreneurs amongst your audience. Did you see what I did there? I've got spotlightbook.com that I forwarded to Amazon. I've got spotlightsecrets.com that I forwarded to an opt-in page where you will give me your name and email, and I will, send you stuff until you're 95. And the third one, spotlightgroup.biz.com, wasn't available, but I have forwarded so that they cost me $10 a year from GoDaddy. But I don't have to tell you, go to linkedin.com/Tsufit/group/862. That's what people do. They tell, oh, you can buy my book at, Tsufit.com/book/ No, just a short branded message within your URL. And then you can rattle it off. I mean, I'm on radio and podcasts all the time. I used to do a lot of TV. It's so much easier to rattle it off. It's so much easier for them to put it on the, what do you call that thing? Oh, fix me. Anyway, the little name thing underneath.
Oh, on the banner. Yeah. The lower thirds.
There's a word for it. Anyway, but it's easier for them to throw it up there. And it's easier for your audience to remember.
So the message there is, if you've got a key benefit, a product name, be sure to grab the domain name for that and use that and give out that domain name to make it easy for people to find online, because that's where they're looking. And we'll include.
Right. And if it was taken, let's say Spotlight book, which I grabbed, was taken. I mean, I could have grabbed the Spotlight book. But if that's taken, take your name, tsufitbook.com, torokbook.com, whatever it is, but you find it and take a version of it. And
you'll be able to find those links in the description for the podcast, all those ones, except you won't find torokbooks.com because that's not there, but all those other ones you will find. Tsufi, and one final message to individuals out there, entrepreneurs, professionals, if they can do a quick test, a quick quiz, and there's a word I'm looking for that escapes me right now, where you test the solution for whether it's acid or
like a stress test.
I forget. It's a scientific word. I forget what it is.
A stress test.
Okay, a stress test for if they are distinct enough in their market.
Well, could a 10-year-old tell somebody else what you do? It could be one, right? Because a lot of people get all hung up in the corporate gobbledygook. I transformational, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's one way. Is it memorable? Is it pass-onable? Is it complicated? Do you have to talk a long time to explain it? I always tell people tell me, 30, I teach a whole 4-week course just about that 30 seconds. And people tell me, Peter, I can't possibly tell everyone what I do in 30 seconds. And I said, you know what, if you can't tell them 30 seconds, you can't tell them 30 minutes either. You know why? Because you don't know. Right? So it's got to be something that you could tell people even in 10 seconds. If you ask me what I do, I coach people to get noticed. I don't need to talk to you for half an hour.
And another good test there. So if a 10-year-old could say what it is, and I can imagine there's a lot of 10-year-olds that would be just delighted to say, oh, they sell big ass fans.
Right. That's a good point. Good point.
My guest today is Tsufit, reminding you to enter the conversation in your prospect's mind. If you like what you heard, remember to like, comment, and share this podcast. Come back every week for more practical insights to help you convey your intended message. I'm your host, George Torok.